At this point in our discussion of the rise of Satan's kingdom, it's necessary for us to explore how Satan's kingdom in fact appeals to people. And to set this up, I would like for us to take a look at 1 John chapter 2, verse 15 and following. There John says, "Do not love the world or anything in the world." So there's a thing called the world, and there are things in it. So there's the frame and the form and the substance, the form and the substance. If anyone loves the world, the love of the Father is not in him. So if you love the world, it is not possible at the same time to love God. Note the emphasis on love. If you love the world, it's not possible at the same time to love God. This doesn't just mean that you have a casual dalliance with the world, but you come to rely on the world. If you do so, the love of the Father is not in you. Now, I mentioned that he said there's the world, the framework, and the things in it. Now he gives us some of the substance of what is in the world. For everything in the world, the cravings of the sinful man, the lust of his eyes, and the boasting of what he has and does, comes not from the Father, but from the world. So what are the things in the world? The cravings of the sinful man, the lust of his eyes, and his boasting about what he has and does. What are these things? His cravings, the lust of his eyes, and his boastfulness. This sounds frighteningly parallel to another scripture that says, the lust of the flesh, the lust of the eyes, and the pride of life. Boasting is easily associated with pride, is it not? The boasting about what he has and does. That's the essence, that's the description of the pride of life. The second thing that is spoken of here is the lust of the eyes, and that's one-to-one. The lust of the flesh, the lust of the eyes, and the pride of life. So the description of the lust of the flesh is the cravings of the sinful man. Every lust is in fact the thing you would exalt above even good sense, even reasonable thought. So the lust of the flesh, the lust of the eyes, and the pride of life have also been variously described as the cravings of the sinful man, the lust of his eyes, and the boastings about what he has and does. Now, this is very helpful to us by giving us definitions to these three basic biblical things. Because we're told that whereas the human is drawn by the lust of the flesh, the lust of the eyes, and the pride of life, that's what draws the human. What are the things in the world? In a previous broadcast, we described world as an orderly arrangement of systems under the sway or rule of the cosmocrator, who is the God of this world. And we saw that this was Satan's scheme, to draw man into reliance upon his systems in lieu of relying upon God. We gave an example of one of these systems before. The adversarial system for the adjudication of disputes creates adversaries as opposed to reconciling people. The kingdom has its ways of doing things, and the cosmos has its ways of doing things. The kingdom's ways have and promote the kingdom's value and the king's value. So, for example, in the example given before, the king's value is to die for the person. The person is important to the king. Therefore, the kingdom's value in the adjudication of disputes is to save the relationships. The cosmos value is the person has no value, because the enemy comes to rob, to steal, to kill, and to destroy. He is a roaring lion, or he goes about as one, a roaring lion, seeking whom he may devour. So his systems devour the things that are valuable and leave in their places the things that are barren and bankrupt. So people will fight and destroy each other over a thing when the thing itself doesn't benefit them in the end, whereas the relationship would have. In the kingdom, the relationship is valuable, and if you can save the relationship, then you may order any form of resolution that comes out of a relationship that is saved. The kingdom has in it, in its matters relating to the saving of relationships, opportunities for repentance, forgiveness, for confession, for reconciliation, for restoration, for renewal. The world has in it apportioning blame, fault, and guilt, and distributing goods and compelling results that fracture and damage relationships. So these systems are in the cosmos, and the kingdom has its parallels. But the world, or the cosmos, reflects the value of the cosmocrator. The kingdom reflects the values of the king. The king is a healer, a reconciler, one who is loving and kind. The cosmocrator is a devourer, an accuser, a prosecutor. So the relative values are displayed in the systems that reflect the rule of both rulers. Now, here is the secret. In the cosmos, there is an absolute draw to the things that will appeal to the human soul. What appeals to the human soul? What is in the human soul that desires to be drawn? His sinful nature, the lust of the flesh, the lust of the eyes, and the pride of life. What is in the cosmos that draws him like a magnet? The appeal to the sinful nature, the appeal to the lust of the eyes, and the boasting about what a man has and does. How do we understand these things? In the world, man is led to believe that he and he alone is responsible for his provision and his protection. Since the fall of man, when the soul of man was exposed, what was exposed alongside of the soul of man is the attitude of the soul. As you know, every human being has three parts to him or to her. We have a body, a soul, and a spirit. This is 1 Thessalonians chapter 5, verse 22. Paul said, I pray that you be sanctified through and through. May your whole spirit, soul, and body be presented blameless at the coming of our Lord. And the one who calls you is faithful, and he will do it. You have a spirit, a soul, and a body. Pray that you be sanctified through and through. May your whole spirit, soul, and body. Now, when man walked with God, the scriptures say in the book of Genesis that God said to man, if you eat of this tree, the tree described as the tree of the knowledge of good and of evil. If you eat of this tree, God said, your eyes will be opened, and you will know good and evil. But God gave as the conclusion of that matter, you will surely die. When the serpent came along, who is the serpent again? That ancient serpent called the dragon, the devil, or Satan, Hasatan, the accuser of the brethren. Same one who's been around since the garden, been in time since the garden, been in existence before the garden. When he came along, he said, well, you will not surely die. God knows when you eat of the tree, your eyes will be opened, you will know good and evil, you will live forever. Now, humans had a choice. Now, here's a bit of a dilemma. It says that the woman saw that the tree was pleasing to the eye and good for food. How could she see if it says, if you eat of the tree, your eyes will be opened? Simple. It's referring to different ways of seeing. And when it says she saw that the tree was desirable to the eyes, to the senses, and to the passions, desirable to make one wise, she ate of it. That's simply a reference to physical sight. She could walk around the garden, she could see the tree. So the eyes of the human body were opened. Now man fellowshipped with God before the fall. God would come in the cool of the day, and in the day he sinned, God still came. That's how he knew that it was God. He acknowledged, he heard the Lord walking in the garden, knew that was the time when the Lord would come, so it was his habit to commune with God. How do we commune with God? We commune according to Romans 8:14, spirit to spirit. Romans 8:11 through 14 tell us that the Spirit himself bears witness with our spirits. We have a body, a soul, and a spirit. So the eyes of the spirit of Adam and Eve were opened while they were in the garden because they were fellowshipping with God. Their natural eyes were opened because they could see the fruit on the tree. The eyes that were closed, were the eyes of the soul. When they ate of the tree, the eyes of their soul were opened, and immediately they responded out of the need to preserve themselves, protect themselves, and the need to provide for themselves. Now, what was activated in them? What was activated was the soul, and the response of the soul tells us how they saw reality. Before, when God would come into the garden, his presence was welcomed. God was not the enemy. That's when you're led by the Spirit. When a man is led by his Spirit, when the human is led by the human spirit, in fellowship with the Spirit of God, God is not the enemy. The appearance of God is welcomed. But when the soul is ruling, the soul is in competition with the will of God. And so the soul sees God as an enemy. All the facts were the same. God still came into the garden. They were still naked. But this time, when the soul viewed reality, the soul wanted to change the way reality was. So when God came into the garden and the Spirit saw God come, it was a time for fellowship and gladness. When the soul now sees God coming, the soul wants to hide. That tells us that the soul sees things differently from the Spirit. Furthermore, as between God and man, nakedness was the norm. And man was not vulnerable in his nakedness. He was naked, he was not ashamed. When man walks with God, God fellowships with man in the nakedness of intimacy. That is, there's nothing hidden from the eyes of the Lord. And the nakedness of man was a metaphor for the all-seeing vision of God and the fellowship that God would have when he sees us as we are. Oddly enough, when fellowship to God is restored, we shall know him and we shall be known fully. We shall know fully even as we are fully known. We shall see him and we shall be like him, for we shall see him as he is. Now, When the soul rules, however, hiding yourself is very important. Clothing is a metaphor for disguise. As between God and man, Adam and Eve wanted to be seen differently. The way the soul sees is to present an image that it hopes to be consumed by the person viewing you. In that annex, man began to hide from God while he saw that his own need was to provide for himself. God saw the inadequacy of his provisions and still had mercy on him, clothed him with skins, and continued to give him instructions about how he should take care of himself. But out of all of that, very valuable information as to both the nature of man and the craft of Satan, how he traps man, emerges. Man's nature, when he is not in fellowship with God, is to protect himself and to provide for himself. He is impulsively drawn to that. And so the enemy observes that man gives in to these three basic impulses which supply him, or which pretend to supply him, with his needs and his needs for provision and for protection. These three basic impulses are the lust of the flesh, the cravings of the sinful nature, if you like, the lust of the eyes, and the pride of life. What are these things? When you look at them apart from the language, what are they in reality? Well, when you're trying to provide for yourself and protect yourself, you ask basic questions. Who is my enemy? How might I prevail against him? And do I have the necessary means? Who is my enemy? How might I prevail against him? What is my plan? And do I have the necessary means? The lust of the flesh allows you to define others as your enemy, because the lust of the flesh compels you to subjugate other people, to manipulate them, to control them, to subjugate them. You think nothing of controlling others when you're ruled by the lust of the flesh, the cravings of the sinful nature. Me above all. I will survive no matter who I have to step on. That's the craving of the sinful nature. The craving of the sinful nature establishes man as the only God he could possibly serve. And that's why Darwin's theory of evolution was so appealing. It legitimized the killer ape, so to speak, the one who survived above all else, the survival of the fittest. The philosophy that embraces the concept of the survival of the fittest is the most perfect framing of the biblical notion of the lust of the flesh. The lust of the eyes is your vision for accomplishing your survival and your dominance. How might I prevail? What is my plan to survive over the opposition? The lust of the eyes are appropriately called the lust of the eyes because they speak of your vision or your plan. It's funny, we've thought that the lust of the flesh and the lust of the eyes have to do with sexual lust. No, sexual lust may be a manifestation of one or the other of these things, but it's not the compendium of its description. It's a much more sinister thing than that. What is my vision for surviving and for thriving over those who oppose my existence in the form that I deem appropriate? And finally, the pride of life. The boasting about what he has and does is the biblical description of the pride of life. Well, pride of life is, can I accomplish? Do I have within my means that which is necessary to accomplish my plan? The boasting about what you have and what you could do. Well, the cosmos offers you exactly that attraction. It offers you first a philosophical legitimacy of surviving above all else. It offers you, secondly, a plan, a perspective on how you might accomplish this through manipulation, through control, and systems that further that. And finally, it offers you the hope and the promise that you have within you and within your reach, within your allied reaches, the way of accomplishing this, if you will trust in the cosmos. That is why when you become a believer, God spends so much of his time working with you to discipline your responses away from the responses of the lust of the flesh, the lust of the eyes, and the pride of life. Seeing others as your enemies, God changes your perspective to allow you to see them the way God sees them. Having a plan to dominate them, God gives you a ministry to help them, to encourage them, to strengthen them. That's from one who will die on a cross for the well-being of others. And instead of seeing yourself as all-powerful in accomplishing anything, you see, as Paul sees, that in your weakness he is made strong. Because when you're weak, his mighty strength works in you, because his mighty strength is not opposed by your desires to show your stuff. So God spends most of your time after you've become a believer weaning you from dependence on the world. If you are not weaned from your dependence on the world, you will assuredly be entrapped in it. And the nature of this entrapment is such that the more you think you've escaped its entrapment, the deeper in the coils of this serpentine entrapment you come to be. Excuse me. So that's why the scriptures say you could use the world, you could use the systems of the world, but don't make full use of them. Don't rely on them. Yes, there may be the appropriate court engagement, but don't rely on it. These systems of the cosmos have been raised up as an alternative to putting your trust in God. And if you put your trust in them, they will surely entrap you and pull you down into the dark recesses of this global kingdom which Satan has prepared in advance of his coming into the earth. He will be thrown out into the earth, and his angels with him. His last stand is this global kingdom that he's made with which to wage war against the saints. His plan is to annihilate the saints by a relentless persecution that, if possible, would destroy even the very elect. Now, in further discussions then, we will look more intently into the plan of Satan for his global kingdom. First, we'll look at the fact that he's going to be thrown out of the heavens and he will come to the earth. Then we will look intently at the 7 systems of the cosmos, and we will look particularly at the religious system of the cosmos, because this is the one he intends to use most effectively against the saints. This discussion is necessary for the believer in this hour, in this day. God is opening the heavens and unveiling things that have been hidden from the beginning of time. And we have been given access into the understandings of the mind of the Lord. These are precious times and important messages. I hope you will join me as we continue to study about the kingdoms of this world. I'm Sam Soleyn. God bless you. I'll see you again. Bye-bye.
I know the plans that I have. They are good for you. They are good for you. I know the plans that I have. They are good for you. They are good for you. And no matter, child, what voices you've heard, just keep trusting in my unchanging word. I know the plans that I have. They are good for you. I know the plans that I have. They are good for you. They are good for you. I know the plans that I have. They are good for you. They are good for you. And no matter, child, what voices you heard, just keep trusting.
Hello, I'm Sam Soleyn, and I'm the host of this television program. I'm happy that you've been joining us in the studies that we've been presenting via these programs. Now, many times I bring an entire series of messages, and you may be only able to hear one out of that series. If you're interested in the whole series, then we have them available for you. If you'll visit us on the website, www.soleyn, my last name, SOLEYN.com, or visit us or write to us at the address shown on the screen. We'd be happy to hear from you. Also, of course, our intention is that these messages be available to the general viewing public without cost to the end user. Obviously, there are costs associated with the production and distribution of these messages. If you would like to help us do that, then we'd love to hear from you. We might suggest that you write to us at the address on the screen or visit us at the website, www.soleyn.com. Our hope is that these messages will enrich the lives of those people who are seeking the Lord, and we hope that you would join us in making this available. I'm Sam Soleyn. God bless you. Thank you so much. Bye-bye. I'm Sam Soleyn, and I'm the host of this program. We're happy that you joined us to watch and to view this program. Our hope is that by doing so, your spiritual life will be greatly enhanced. Visit us on our website at www.soleyn.com for further information on these messages. Thank you so much, and God bless you. Bye-bye.